You really want to fight us because we're black and wearing hoodies? Malik asked quietly, and the entire sports bar went silent for half a second before Tyler Brooks laughed loud enough for everyone near the TVs to hear him. It was Friday night in downtown Dallas, the kind of humid Texas evening where every bar near the arena was packed shoulder to shoulder with people drinking beer, shouting at giant screens, and pretending they knew more about fighting than the men inside the cage. Marcus and I had only stopped there because our truck needed gas and Coach Raymond was running late for dinner across town. We weren't looking for attention. Honestly, we barely said 10 words after we walked in. Marcus ordered sparkling water. I ordered sweet tea. We sat near the back wall under an old neon Budweiser sign while the crowd screamed at a lightweight title fight playing over the speakers. Most people never noticed us at first. That was normal. Two black twins in dark hoodies and work boots didn't exactly stand out in Texas. Not until Tyler noticed us. He was sitting with 4 other guys near the center tables, all of them built like former college athletes who never stopped talking about high school football. Loud voices, expensive watches, polos stretched too tight around their arms. The kind of men who walked through crowded rooms like they owned every inch of air around them. At first it started small. Tyler bumped into Marcus while pretending to reach for napkins. No apology, just a smirk. Marcus barely looked up from his phone. Then Ethan, the skinny blonde one always holding his camera sideways for live streams, pointed toward us and laughed. "Those dudes look like they came here to rob the place," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. A few people laughed nervously. Others looked away. Nobody likes being the first person to call something racist in public. Tyler leaned back in his chair and stared at us like we were entertainment. "Nah," he said. "They're trying to look tough. Probably hoping somebody notices." Marcus took another sip of water. Calm, slow, controlled. Anyone paying attention would have noticed something strange right there. Most people get defensive when strangers start humiliating them in public. Marcus looked bored. That only irritated Tyler more. He stood up and walked toward our table with the confidence of someone who had never really been told no in his life. The crowd noise around us slowly shifted. You could feel people listening without turning their heads. "You twins?" Tyler asked. Malik nodded once. "Yeah." Tyler smirked. "Figures. Matching hoodies too. Cute." Ethan was already live streaming now, his phone camera bouncing slightly as comments flooded his screen. He loved an audience. "This is about to get good," he muttered. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes steady and unreadable. "We're just trying to enjoy our drinks, man." Tyler laughed again, but this time there was something sharper under it. "Nah, I think you two came in here wanting attention." He planted both hands on our table and leaned closer. "Matter of fact, I think you boys should come outside and prove how tough you are." The word boys landed differently than he intended. The entire mood around us changed. Even the bartender noticed. Jasmine stopped drying glasses and stared across the room with that expression people get when they realize something stupid is about to happen. Marcus slowly placed his cup on the table. Not angry, not nervous, just careful. Tyler mistook that calmness for fear. Most people did. Tyler looked around the bar like he was waiting for applause. A couple of his friends laughed immediately, too loudly, too eager, the way people do when they are afraid of falling out of favor with the loudest man in the room. Ethan kept circling us with his phone raised chest high, reading comments off the live stream with a grin stretched across his face. "People are saying you two do not want smoke," he said. "Man, this stream is blowing up." Marcus did not answer him. He simply leaned back in his chair and glanced toward the front entrance for half a second before looking at Tyler again. Most people would not have noticed that small movement, but Jasmine did. I saw it in the way her expression changed behind the counter. Marcus was not looking for an escape. He was checking exits the way trained people do. Without thinking, Tyler mistook silence for weakness. Men like him usually did. "What is wrong?" he asked. "Cat got your tongue?" Marcus folded his hands calmly on the table. "Nobody here wants problems." Tyler smirked. "Then stop acting tough." Around us, the energy inside the sports bar kept shifting. The fight on the giant screens still played overhead. Commentators yelling through the speakers while glasses clinked and people shouted at missed punches, but our corner of the room felt strangely quiet now. Conversations nearby had started fading one by one. Phones were turning in our direction. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked excited. Public humiliation always attracts an audience in America. especially when people think somebody is about to get embarrassed. Ethan zoomed the camera closer to Marcus's face. You nervous? He asked. Marcus finally looked directly into the lens. Calm eyes. Steady breathing. No anger at all. You should stop recording strangers for internet points, he said quietly. That only made Tyler laugh harder. Hear that? He is giving life advice now. One of the men behind Tyler muttered something under his breath about guys from the hood, and another snickered. Nobody said the ugly part out loud, but everyone heard it anyway. That was the thing about places like this. Sometimes racism did not sound explosive. Sometimes it sounded casual, comfortable, like people had practiced it their whole lives. I picked up my glass of sweet tea and took another sip while Marcus stared at Tyler with the patience of someone counting down seconds inside his head. Tyler noticed the scars along Marcus's knuckles then. Small white lines. Old marks. His smile faded for just a second before pride forced it back again. What do you do for work? Tyler asked. Marcus shrugged once. Construction. That answer seemed to relax Tyler instantly. He laughed and looked around at the crowd like he had already won something. That explains it, he said. Thought you looked like somebody who carries heavy stuff for a living. Ethan nearly dropped his phone laughing. But Jasmine was not laughing anymore. Neither was the older man sitting alone near the wall wearing a navy baseball cap. He had been quietly watching us for the last 5 minutes without touching his drink. Then Marcus reached for the check on the table. Slow. Unbothered. We are leaving, he said. Tyler stepped sideways immediately, blocking the path between our table and the exit. The smile on his face looked thinner now, stretched tight by ego and too many people watching. No, he said softly. I think you two owe everybody a show first. Nobody moved for a second after Tyler blocked the exit. The music still played overhead. Glasses still clinked behind the bar. Somewhere near the front entrance, somebody laughed at the fight showing on television. But around our table, the mood had changed completely. You could feel it in the silence. Tyler crossed his arms and rocked slightly on his heels like he was enjoying himself now. The audience mattered to him more than anything else. Men like Tyler never really picked fights because they were angry. They picked them because they wanted witnesses. Ethan kept filming from the side while comments poured across his screen so quickly he could barely read them. People are betting on this now, he said with a grin. This might hit 50,000 views tonight. Marcus stood slowly from his chair. Calm. Smooth. No wasted movement. The older man near the wall looked up immediately when he saw Marcus rise to his feet. His expression shifted in a way I could not quite place at first. Not fear. Recognition. Tyler noticed it too, but his ego was already too deep into the moment to stop. There we go, he said. Knew you had some pride. Marcus slipped his wallet into his hoodie pocket and looked directly at Tyler. You should let us leave. The sentence was quiet enough that nearby tables leaned closer just to hear it. Tyler smiled wider. Or what? Marcus did not answer. That silence irritated Tyler more than insults ever could. He wanted anger. He wanted shouting. He wanted the crowd to see him dominate somebody emotionally before anything else happened. Instead, he kept running into this wall of calmness he could not understand. Jasmine stepped out from behind the counter then. Tyler, she said carefully. Just let them go home. Tyler barely looked at her. Nobody asked you. His voice was sharper now. Frustration was beginning to crack through the performance. Ethan moved closer to Marcus with the camera still raised. Why are you acting scared if there are two of you? He asked. Marcus glanced briefly toward the phone lens. Being calm is not fear. That sentence hit the room differently than Tyler expected. A few people stopped smiling after that. The older man in the baseball cap finally spoke from across the room. Kid, he said quietly toward Tyler. You should listen to him. Tyler turned immediately. Mind your business, old man. The man sighed softly and shook his head once. Then he looked directly at Marcus again. Still training at North Dallas? He asked. Ethan lowered the phone slightly. Tyler frowned. Marcus paused for half a second before answering. Sometimes. The room grew quieter than before. Jasmine blinked. Wait, she said under her breath. Ethan looked between them with sudden confusion. Training what? Nobody answered him immediately. Tyler laughed again, but it sounded thinner now. Forced. What is this? He asked. Karate class? Marcus reached toward the table and picked up his keys. The sleeve of his hoodie slid back slightly, exposing the edge of a scar running along his forearm. Not fresh. Old. The kind left behind by years of hard training. The older man stood up slowly beside his table. I have seen those twins fight before, he said calmly. Trust me, you boys do not want this attention. Ethan's eyes widened instantly. He grabbed his phone with both hands and started typing quickly into a search bar while the live stream comments exploded. Tyler glanced around the room and realized for the first time that the crowd was no longer entirely on his side. Ethan stared at his phone so hard his smile slowly disappeared. The live stream comments were moving faster now, flooding the screen in long waves of capital letters and question marks. He looked back up at Marcus, then down at the phone again like his brain was struggling to connect the two images together. No way, he muttered quietly. Tyler stepped closer immediately. What? Ethan swallowed once before turning the screen toward him. I think these are them. Tyler frowned at the phone. The room stayed silent enough that I could hear ice shifting inside somebody's glass near the bar. On Ethan's screen was an old fight poster from 3 years earlier. Two black twins standing side by side under bright arena lights. Their names stretched across the top in bold letters. Marcus Carter. Malik Carter. Twin Night Main Event. Tyler stared for a second too long before scoffing loudly. That does not mean anything. But his voice had changed. The confidence inside it no longer sounded natural. Ethan kept scrolling nervously. More photos appeared. Interviews. Gym clips. Regional fight coverage. One video showed Marcus standing inside a cage with his hands raised while a referee held his wrist in the air. Another showed Malik teaching a self-defense seminar to teenagers at a recreation center. The livestream exploded completely after that. People watching online began recognizing the names before the crowd inside the bar fully understood what was happening. Bro, those are actual fighters. Tell Tyler to leave. This just turned bad. Ethan looked pale now. He lowered the phone slowly. Tyler forced out another laugh, but nobody joined him this time. Jasmine folded her arms behind the counter and shook her head once. I tried warning you, she said quietly. Marcus remained perfectly still beside the table. No smirk. No threat. That calmness was starting to affect everybody around him. Tyler glanced at me next, maybe hoping for a different reaction, but I simply picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. We are leaving, I said. The older man near the wall gave a short laugh under his breath. Smart idea, he muttered. For a moment it actually looked like Tyler might move aside. Pride and common sense were fighting inside his head, while 24 strangers watched him lose control of the room. But humiliation does strange things to certain men, especially when cameras are involved. Ethan leaned closer to him and whispered something urgently, but Tyler shook him off immediately. I do not care who they are, he said louder than necessary. Everybody trains something these days. Nobody answered him. The silence hurt him more than insults could have. Tyler looked around the bar expecting support, but the crowd had changed completely now. Earlier, they wanted entertainment. Now they wanted to see what Tyler would do with the truth sitting directly in front of him. Some people looked nervous. Others looked fascinated. A few even stepped backward to create more space around us without realizing it. Marcus reached down and calmly adjusted the sleeve of his hoodie. Ethan noticed his ears then, thickened slightly from years of training. The kind fighters usually carry long after retirement. Ethan stared at them for a second and whispered, "Oh no." Tyler heard him. I watched embarrassment spread slowly across his face like heat under the skin. But instead of backing down, he straightened his shoulders and forced another grin. All right then, he said. If you two are so famous, prove it outside. Marcus looked at him quietly for several long seconds. Then he reached toward the table and removed his watch with slow, careful movements. The entire room froze. Marcus placed the watch carefully beside the empty glass on the table, while every person nearby stared at him without speaking. The movement itself was simple, almost polite, but somehow it changed the entire atmosphere inside the sports bar. Earlier people had been expecting entertainment. Now they were watching consequences unfold in slow motion. Tyler noticed it too. That was the first time I saw uncertainty reach his eyes for real. Not fear exactly. More like the sudden realization that he had walked too far into something he no longer controlled. Ethan lowered the livestream camera slightly and leaned closer to Tyler again. Seriously, man, he whispered. Maybe let it go. Tyler jerked his arm away immediately. Pride was holding him together now. Pride and the fact that too many people were watching. Marcus looked at him calmly. Nobody here needs to prove anything. Tyler forced a laugh. Then why take the watch off? Marcus glanced at the table for a second before answering. Because I do not want it damaged. A few people in the crowd reacted quietly to that line. Somebody near the back muttered, "Oh, that is cold." Ethan stared at Marcus with wide eyes while comments exploded across the live stream. The online audience had fully switched sides now. Earlier they mocked us. Now they were warning Tyler to back down before he embarrassed himself. Jasmine walked toward our table carrying the check folder. Her hands looked tense. "Please just end this here," she said softly. "Everybody can still walk away." Marcus nodded once. "That is what we are trying to do." Tyler shook his head slowly, smiling in that thin, strained way people do when they know they are losing face. "No," he said. "You two wanted attention the second you walked in here." I looked at him for a moment and realized something sad. Tyler truly believed that. Men like him often mistake confidence for aggression whenever it comes from black men. We had walked in quietly, ordered drinks, and stayed to ourselves, but in Tyler's mind our existence alone had somehow challenged him. The older man in the baseball cap stepped closer then. "Son," he said carefully, "there is nothing weak about staying calm. Learn that before life teaches it the hard way." Tyler ignored him completely. Ethan was searching through old fight clips now, his face growing more uncomfortable every second. One video showed Marcus winning by submission inside a packed arena while thousands of people screamed his name. Another showed me speaking at a youth mentorship event on the south side of Dallas. Ethan looked between the videos and the two of us standing quietly near the table. The disconnect clearly bothered him. We did not match the image he had built in his head. "You guys are actually professionals?" he asked quietly. Marcus shrugged once. "Used to be." That answer somehow made the room even quieter. There was no bragging in it. No ego. Just fact. Tyler looked around and realized nobody was laughing with him anymore. Not his friends. Not the crowd. Even the men sitting beside him had started creating distance without realizing it. One took a step back toward the bar. Another pretended to check his phone. Tyler was standing alone now, even before he understood it. Himself. Outside the large front windows, rain had started falling over downtown Dallas in thin silver streaks under the streetlights. Marcus glanced toward the parking lot and picked up his watch again. "Last chance," he said calmly. "Go home." Tyler clenched his jaw hard enough for the muscles to twitch. Then he smiled again, but this time it looked desperate. "Nah," he said quietly. "Now we are definitely going outside." Rain covered the parking lot in a thin reflective layer as people poured out of the sports bar behind us with their phones already raised. Downtown Dallas glowed silver and red from traffic lights and neon signs bouncing across the wet pavement. The air smelled like rain, gasoline, and hot asphalt cooling after a long Texas day. Marcus walked calmly toward the edge of the lot without looking back, while I followed a few steps behind him. Tyler came through the front doors louder than before, still trying to perform confidence for the crowd gathering around him. Ethan stayed close beside him, but his energy had changed completely. Earlier, he looked entertained. Now he looked nervous. "This is a bad idea," he whispered again. Tyler ignored him. Cameras pointed at us from every direction now. People stood beneath the awning to avoid the rain while others gathered near parked trucks and SUVs with live stream chats glowing across their screens. Nobody cared about the fight playing inside the sports bar anymore. Whatever this had become was more real to them. Marcus stopped near the center of the lot and turned around slowly. Raindrops rolled down the hood of his sweatshirt while streetlights reflected in shallow puddles around his boots. He did not look angry. That was the unsettling part. Tyler approached with his shoulders stiff and jaw tight, trying hard to hold on to the image he had built for himself all night. "You still have time to leave," Marcus said calmly. Tyler laughed once. "You keep saying that like I am supposed to be scared." Marcus looked at him for several seconds before answering. "No, I am saying it because this does not need to happen." The crowd reacted quietly to that line. Some people exchanged looks. Others lowered their phones slightly. It became harder and harder to paint Marcus as the aggressor when he kept giving Tyler chances to walk away with dignity. Ethan glanced at his livestream comments again and swallowed hard. "People know who they are now," he muttered. "This thing has like 80,000 viewers." Tyler looked around immediately after hearing that number. I could almost see the trap closing around him. Pride had become public now. Backing down in front of 80,000 strangers felt impossible to him. Jasmine stepped outside beneath the awning with her arms folded tightly across her chest. "Tyler," she called out, "go home." He shook his head without even looking at her. The older man in the baseball cap stood nearby watching quietly. "Young men think humiliation lasts forever," he said softly to nobody in particular. "But hospital bills and criminal records last longer." Tyler heard him. His face tightened again. Marcus slowly removed his hoodie and handed it to me without taking his eyes off Tyler. Several people in the crowd reacted immediately when they saw the old training scars across his shoulders and arms. Nothing dramatic. Just years of discipline written quietly across his body. Ethan stared openly now. "Man," he whispered, "he really tried warning you." Tyler looked around at the crowd one more time and realized too late that nobody expected him to win anymore. They were not cheering him on now. They were waiting to see whether he was stubborn enough to continue anyway. That realization seemed to irritate him more than anything else. "I do not care about your little trophies," he snapped. "You think being fighters makes you better than everybody?" Marcus shook his head once. "No," he said quietly, "but I think respect matters. And you lost yours hours ago." For the first time all night, Tyler did not have an answer. The rain kept falling softly across the parking lot, while nobody spoke for several long seconds after Marcus answered Tyler. The city noise around us suddenly felt far away. Traffic moved through downtown Dallas. Sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. Music drifted faintly from the sports bar behind us. But inside that circle of people, holding up phones beneath the streetlights, everything narrowed down to silence and pride. Tyler looked around one last time, searching for support that was no longer there. Earlier the crowd had laughed with him. Now they watched him carefully, almost cautiously, like they were waiting to see whether he understood how badly he had misread the situation. Ethan lowered the livestream camera completely for the first time all night. "Man, just let it go," he said quietly. "Seriously." Tyler ignored him again, but this time the confidence looked forced. His breathing had changed. Faster now. Shorter. He pointed toward Marcus with an irritated shake of his head. "You think you are better than people because you can fight?" Marcus stood calmly in the rain without moving. "No," he answered. "I think discipline matters. Self-control matters. Respect matters." Tyler scoffed loudly, but nobody joined him. That seemed to frustrate him even more. Humiliation had started settling onto his shoulders piece by piece. Not because anybody touched him, because the audience he wanted so badly had stopped admiring him. One of his own friends quietly stepped backward toward the sidewalk and pretended to answer a phone call. Another avoided eye contact completely. Tyler noticed all of it. The older man in the baseball cap folded his arms and sighed. "The loudest guy in the room usually knows the least," he muttered. Marcus slowly glanced toward me, then back toward Tyler again. "We are leaving now," he said calmly. "That is the end of this." He reached for his hoodie in my hands and slipped it back on while turning toward the parking lot exit. The entire crowd seemed to exhale at once. People lowered their phones slightly. Jasmine even relaxed her shoulders beneath the awning. It looked over. It should have ended there. But Tyler suddenly stepped forward again, trying one last desperate attempt to reclaim control of the moment. "That is it," he shouted after Marcus. "You talk all that tough guy stuff and walk away?" Marcus stopped walking. Slowly he turned back around, rain dripping from the edge of his hood. His expression never changed. "Walking away is not weakness," he said. Quietly. Most grown men learn that eventually. The crowd reacted immediately to that line. A few people laughed under their breath. Not at Marcus. At Tyler. That was the moment everything truly shifted. Tyler heard it too. The humiliation finally landed. Not the kind that comes from losing a fight. The kind that comes from realizing strangers no longer respect you. Ethan rubbed his forehead with one hand and whispered, "Oh man." Tyler opened his mouth like he wanted another comeback, but nothing came out. His anger had nowhere left to go. The livestream comments were moving so fast now that Ethan could barely keep up. Thousands of people watching online were clipping the moment in real time. Marcus looked at Tyler for one final second before shaking his head slightly. "You had every chance to leave this night with dignity," he said. "You just kept choosing ego instead." Then he turned and walked toward the truck with me beside him while the crowd slowly parted to let us through. Nobody tried stopping us. Nobody laughed anymore. The only sound left was the rain falling across the pavement and Tyler standing alone behind us with every camera still pointed in his direction. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. Clips from the parking lot flooded social media before sunrise, reposted across sports pages, reaction channels, and local Dallas accounts hungry for controversy. Some versions slowed down the moment Marcus calmly removed his watch. Others focused on Tyler standing speechless in the rain after losing control of the crowd. But the clip people shared most was the moment Marcus said, "Walking away is not weakness." That sentence spread faster than anybody expected. By noon, millions of people had watched some version of the video online. Ethan's livestream alone crossed 2 million views overnight. The internet did what it always does. Strangers picked sides. Comment sections exploded. Some mocked Tyler endlessly while others argued about race, ego, and public humiliation. But one thing stayed consistent across nearly every repost. People respected how calm Marcus and I remained the entire night. We never shouted, never threatened anybody, never gave the crowd the explosion they expected. That seemed to bother people more than anger would have. Around 10 in the morning, my phone started vibrating nonstop on the kitchen counter. Old coaches, former training partners, guys from regional fight promotions we had not spoken to in years. Marcus ignored most of the calls and sat quietly at the dining table eating eggs and toast while rain tapped softly against the apartment windows. "You going to answer any of those?" I asked. He shrugged once. Not really interested. That was Marcus. He never cared much about attention, even back when we fought professionally. Winning mattered to him. Discipline mattered. Fame never did. A few hours later, Coach Raymond finally called again, and this time Marcus answered. The old man laughed the second the phone connected. "I leave you two alone for one Friday night, and suddenly the whole country knows your names again." Marcus smiled faintly for the first time since the sports bar. Was not exactly planned. Coach Raymond grew quieter after that. "You boys handled yourselves right," he said. "Most men would have lost control after hearing that kind of disrespect." Marcus stared out the window for a second before answering. "We have heard worse." That sentence sat heavy in the room after he said it. Because it was true. Growing up black in certain parts of Texas teaches you patience early. People assume things when they see your skin, your clothes, your posture, your silence. Some see danger before they see humanity. Marcus learned long ago that reacting emotionally only gave those people exactly what they wanted. Later that afternoon, Ethan posted a public apology video from inside his car. His eyes looked exhausted, dark circles under them from spending all night reading comments. "I should not have escalated things," he admitted quietly. "I got caught up trying to entertain people online." The internet reacted surprisingly well to his apology. Tyler never posted one. At least not then. Instead, new videos kept surfacing from different angles inside the sports bar. In one clip, Tyler could clearly be heard mocking us before anybody knew who we were. In another, Jasmine tried repeatedly to calm the situation while Tyler ignored her. Public opinion shifted harder after that. People were no longer talking about fighters or pride. They were talking about disrespect. About how quickly certain people become aggressive when they think someone beneath them will not fight back. 3 days later, Marcus and I returned to the gym for morning training. The younger fighters gathered around us, immediately asking questions about the video they had all seen online. Marcus shook his head and wrapped his hands slowly before practice. "The internet got the wrong lesson," he said quietly. One of the younger men frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus looked around the gym carefully before answering. "People think this story is about fighting," he said. "It is not. It is about ego. And ego ruins people long before fists ever do." About 3 weeks after the night outside the sports bar, Marcus and I stopped at a grocery store on the north side of Dallas after training. It was early evening. The sun was dropping behind the buildings, turning the parking lot gold beneath long shadows from shopping carts and pickup trucks. We were loading bags into the truck when I noticed someone standing several spaces away near a gray SUV. Tyler looked different without an audience around him. Smaller somehow. Not physically. Emotionally. The confidence he wore that night was gone now, stripped away by silence and consequences. He stared at us for a few seconds before walking over slowly with both hands visible at his sides. Marcus noticed him immediately, but kept placing groceries into the truck bed without reacting. Tyler stopped about 10 feet away. "Hey," he said quietly. Neither of us answered right away. Cars rolled through the parking lot behind him, while somebody nearby returned a shopping cart with a loud metallic clatter. Tyler glanced down once before speaking again. I wanted to say I was wrong. Marcus finally looked at him. Calm as always. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I watched those videos back afterward," he admitted. I sounded like an idiot. Marcus closed the truck tailgate gently and leaned against it without crossing his arms. You sounded angry, he said. Tyler nodded slowly. Yeah. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to explain himself, but some things sound weak the second they leave your mouth. Excuses usually do. I lost my job over that video, he admitted quietly instead. Somebody sent it to my boss. Marcus studied him carefully for several seconds. Not with satisfaction. Not with pity either. Just honesty. Actions follow people, he said. Tyler gave a short laugh with no humor inside it. Trust me. I know. The wind moved lightly across the parking lot, while evening traffic hummed beyond the intersection nearby. Tyler looked older than he had 3 weeks earlier. Stress does that quickly sometimes. I kept thinking you were trying to embarrass me, he admitted. But you were actually trying to leave. Marcus nodded once. From the beginning. Tyler stared down at the pavement after hearing that. I do not know why I got so angry. Marcus looked toward the fading sunlight for a second before answering. Because you saw two black men staying calm, and your ego translated that into disrespect. Tyler looked stunned by how directly Marcus said it. But he did not argue. That was new. Maybe, he admitted quietly. I guess I never thought about it like that before. Marcus stepped closer then, not aggressively, just enough that Tyler had to actually listen instead of performing for a crowd. Respect is not something you turn on after somebody proves they can hurt you, he said calmly. That is fear. Real respect happens before any of that. Tyler swallowed hard and nodded slowly. Somewhere behind us a child laughed while being pushed through the parking lot in a shopping cart by his mother. Life kept moving around the conversation like it always does. Marcus picked up the last grocery bag and opened the passenger side door. Tyler looked at both of us one final time. I really am sorry, he said quietly. Marcus held the door open for a second before answering. Then learn from it. Tyler nodded once more and walked back toward his SUV alone beneath the orange evening light. Marcus climbed into the truck beside me and shut the door gently. We sat there silently for a moment while the city glowed around us. Then Marcus looked out through the windshield and sighed softly. People spend too much time trying to win rooms full of strangers, he said. That is usually how they lose themselves. Then he started the engine, and we drove away into the Dallas traffic while the sun disappeared behind the skyline.